it? Perfect. And we are
Smart,
officially
starting the
we've got
recording.
the yes, we've got the voice in our ears telling us that we are all set too, so we should be fantastic. We've got everybody rolling in from the waiting room too. So to everybody who is just now joining us, thank you very, very much for joining our session here today. My name is Nico. I run social and community here at Scribe, and I am very, very excited to bring on Luis. He is the founder and chief strategist at law firm Architects. And today we're going to tackle a really interesting topic that I think not only relates directly to regulated industries such as the legal industry as you are in, but applies to really any industry that deals with operations, that deals with anything. Anybody who is in operations can make use of all the information here that we have today. To start us off and kick off the chat, I would love to know where everybody is from and if you like light mode or dark mode better. I always find that's a very fun topic to kick off the discussion with all of our tech crowds. We've got the Fireflies AI recorders too. That's great. Fantastic. Happy to have everybody here. And Teresa, yes, her name is Zara. She is very excited to listen to the session as well too. We've got some great content for Luis too. But I will go ahead and kick it over to you, Louise, if you want to go ahead and give us a quick introduction, who you are, what you do, and we can go ahead and dive right in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nico. Appreciate that. And I don't think I can top Zara's performance on this call. It just looks so cute and comfy. So I just want to set the bar right now. It's going to be less than Zara. But no, super excited to be here. I'm the founder of Law Firm Architects. Super excited to tell everybody what it is that we do and how we use Scribe in our workflow because it is a critical piece of our infrastructure and our process. And I think you'll see we do some pretty unique stuff. But I have some information about kind of my background and how I got into legal. I'm not a lawyer. But I'll just go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started with it.
Fantastic. Let's do it. We've got a decent split on the light mode versus
Oh,
dark
here we
mode
go.
as well too. We've got some. I'm definitely more of a fan of dark
There we
mode. I
go.
try to get everybody on to dark mode too, but I get it. It's you're used to what you're used to, which is fair.
Dark mode is the only way.
That's what
Um,
I think too.
right? I mean, I don't know. Just that's just me. Nico, can you see this okay on your side?
Yes, I can. Everything looks great.
Perfect. Let's do it. So I want to tell everyone here today how we go ahead and design law firms. And really what we do, and I love this title, is we design the law firm brain. We help operations teams that do really tough, high compliance regulatory work. We help them turn workflow chaos and insanity that feels like it's super bespoke every time into highly scalable processes and SOPs. And our tagline at Law Firm Architects is we design law firms that don't run on burnout because we find that, as you'll hear in our narrative here, we usually get calls from attorneys because they are pretty close to burnout, right? Like everything runs through them. They are the single point of failure, and we'll unpack why and how we fix that. So as I mentioned, I'm the founder, I'm the chief strategist. I help law firms design streamlined, client-focused firms. And I actually spent 15 years at NASA, so far from law, more in engineering. I'm a huge space nerd, and I did all sorts of things at NASA. Towards the end of my 15 years there, I was the head of customer experience. And so it was up to me to design enterprise-wide experiences for employees, for people interacting with NASA. And I always get asked, who's NASA's clients? Maybe it's extraterrestrials. I just can't tell you that. But for sure, it's the 100,000 plus employees that work at NASA, right? It's like interns that onboard, new employees, like everyone that needs to consume services from legal, HR, whatever. It was my problem to untangle it. And so I always like to say, I did such a really great job over 15 years of like complaining about how things were that towards the end of my tenure, they were like, here, you fix it. And so that's how I got into that. Fast forward a bunch of years, I jumped over to Pfizer in the private sector and I led customer experience strategy and something called service design, which you'll see unpacked here. Which is essentially bringing service-based businesses to life and optimizing them. So thinking about the people, the process, the tech, and finding the balance between those things. And of course, I'm a huge space nerd. So there's a picture of me inside the space shuttle. There's a picture of me coming out of the space shuttle. And there's another picture of baby me inside the space shuttle. You couldn't keep me away from this thing when I was at Kennedy Space Center. So I have to give the people what they want when I say NASA. But
I
yeah,
love
super
that.
excited to be here. Yeah. So Law Firm Architects is a legal design agency. This is a new phrase out in industry. If you were to Google legal design, there's just not a lot out there. We are really leaning into this space by bringing forward kind of fresh thoughts and methodologies to revamp how law firms work. So over on the right, you see what we call an operations blueprint. And so this is just an artifact that's like far into our process, but it's how we help law firms understand how people, technology, and workflows and all of the like things behind the scenes that they usually think are irrelevant in some processes actually all come together to create experiences. And it all matters, right? And so our job is one to understand the firm's vision for where they want to go. And to be honest, most of the time it's a managing partner of a firm that calls us and says, I just want to take a freaking vacation, right? Like just unplug me from this thing and let it run. And so our job is to design sustainable strategies. And of course, we are incredibly proud Scribe partners. We're all about the Scribe. And so we use Scribe for so much more than SOPs that I'm really excited to show everybody like how we use it in our workflow. I think you'll find some really interesting use cases here. So why do law firm operations feel chaotic? This is always a really interesting question. It's not because people are bad. People are not bad. People actually don't want to show up to work and have a bad time, right? And people are just don't have bad intentions. Like I think we all want to assume people have good intentions. People actually struggle because the way work happens in law firms or any organization really is typically invisible, right? Like you might have to ask Nico how these webinars are set up because Nico's the only one who's ever done it. And so the SOPs, of course, he would use Scribe, but the SOPs are typically outdated and abandoned and full of dust, just like what you see here. No one comes back to them. They're usually like 80-page things that no one cares about. And so this creates accumulation of work over time. Cases accumulate, clients accumulate, right? And things start to get backlogged. Exceptions to how work happens start to accumulate. And then workarounds accumulate. So like it gets really hard to map out work. You have to basically be in the firm to understand how things are done. There's just no blueprint for it. And decisions are layered on top of old decisions. I'll give you a good example. If you buy a tool and it doesn't do a thing you like, you might get another tool to do that one thing. And now you have like all of these layered decisions that it's really hard to explain to someone. So when you go to onboard someone new, you want to explain to them how to set up this webinar, but you know what? It's just easier if Nico does it. I'm out. Thanks, Nico. You got it forever. You and Zara, right? And so what law firms are doing today isn't bad. It just wasn't intentionally designed, right? It evolved over time. And so we educate first and foremost that systems do not equal tech, right? All firms already have systems. They just live in someone's head. And so these are the invisible rules that drive how a law firm operates. And I'm sure everyone on this call that's even not in a law firm might see themselves in this process, right? How work gets handed off, how clients get updates, how you progress work. It's okay if it's all invisible rule driven, right? Like it's all in your head until you get busy, until you scale, until Nico wants to take Zara and go on a walk for like a week and just take some time off. Then you start seeing the cracks in the system. Right? Lawyers, who, by the way, are not cheap on an hourly level, start to repeat themselves, right? Work starts to pile up. Deadlines, which in law typically are pretty dang close to life or death, and maybe they might be life or death, start to sneak up. Clients reach out asking for updates before the team does. And the worst thing that could happen in 2026 is you get a one-star review. I mean, maybe not the worst, but it's pretty dang bad. And so when this starts to pile, your brand reputation drops. And so it's not a people problem, is what we always evangelize. It's actually a design problem, and we can solve it with our methods. So I think the thing that's really important to understand is that work living in people's head is actually a huge problem. When you don't document critical workflows, they're only memorized by the people that do them. And typically, this is the firm owner. Super great if you're a solo. If you have multiple personalities, maybe that's an issue. But if you're a solo, it's okay. As you start to like grow and bring on a team and try to explain stuff, it gets really challenging. And so onboarding staff, it feels impossible. It just gets really tough, right? Like we see a lot of lawyers that say, I really want to hire a number two, but man, the training is just going to kill me, right? Or maybe you have a team and then someone, your critical number two person takes a vacation. We're just not going to do those types of cases, or we're just going to turn off the phone and not do intake because Nico's out. But communications start to vary, and then you get inconsistent client experiences, which is never great. But more importantly, SOPs, they're just outdated as soon as they're documented. Like they're just pointless. And so technology doesn't solve these problems. So similarly, we actually don't start our process by reading 80-page SOPs. It's really funny because our clients will send us that and like we'll thumb through it, but we just put it aside. Like it's almost irrelevant. We need to hear how the work really happens. And so I love this slide, especially on a Scribe webinar, because traditional SOPs are just dead. I'll show you what actual SOPs look like that drive value and engagement and get used. But this is one from one of our like immigration firm clients on the right, and you can see inside of it, there's just a lot of stuff that's open to misinterpretation, like moving something into a folder or renaming something a certain way. We hear from a lot of team members that I looked in that folder and it just didn't exist. Or I don't know what this was referencing. We hear that all the time. And so they just abandon it. Yeah, we don't do it. And you can also tell this was made by ChatGPT. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? The brackets, the EM dashes, like it gives it all away. And so these SOPs are pretty much worthless. They're written once. Even the person that created it doesn't come back to it. They're created to assume linear experiences. And let's be honest, real life is far from linear, right? Like you're always going to have like a situation where a client maybe didn't do the step that you needed, and so the next step doesn't make sense. So you're like, what do I do here? You actually create an exception. You make a judgment call. And so where does this live in an 80-page SOP? Nowhere. But by the way, I'll show you towards the end of this where that lives in our Scribe SOPs. And so work actually starts to accumulate outside of the systems that they're intended to operate in. And of course, ChatGPT just makes this whole process so much worse. You get faster SOPs, but they don't mean that they're usable. You get more words, but it's less clear. And then you get these generic steps that really deviate from any semblance of reality. And so one thing I learned at NASA, which was super critical, especially in like mission operations work, is that SOPs have to make sense at a glance. You know, if you're working on launching a rocket, especially, it's kind of similar to operating a law firm. You need to know what's next, and you have to have extreme clarity that the button you're about to press is going to drive this next action. And so if it doesn't make sense at a glance, human beings are just not going to come back to it. You know, and the thing I always evangelize to our clients is your law firm doesn't compete with other law firms. Like you might think you do, like, oh, they took my client or whatever. It's not the reality. Your biggest competition is companies like Amazon because they are setting the customer expectation to be instant, right? Clients want immediate updates. Clients want everything at their fingertips. And similarly, your staff, which are also humans and probably have Amazon Prime and the same expectations, want SOPs to make sense like that, super quick, or they're just going to do their own thing and they're going to go off the reservation. So it's a really important point. So the secret sauce to building burnout-proof law firms starts with employee experience. You know, it's not about leads, it's not about marketing, it's about making sure that the people in the law firm don't hate their lives. Because if they're miserable, it shows in every other part of the business. So we spend a ton of time on employee experience. It's huge. We build people strategies, we understand roles. We hear from lawyers like, you know, I just can't delegate to my team, like they're not getting it. It's typically a lawyer problem, right? It's typically not a team problem. Like the culture is maybe missing. And so we spend a lot of time here. Client experience, huge in this space, right? Like once we can have employees that are excited to show up to work, the clients can feel that. Once we can design interactions that are effortless and exceptional, clients are excited and they're going to tell their friends. There's a quote that I really love from, I think it's the founder of Airbnb, who says, and I'm going to chop this up. So if someone Googles this and gets it right, please email me. But he says something like, marketing is the price you pay for making a product or service that is not remarkable. And I love that because what law firms really thrive off of is word of mouth referrals. So you have to create client experiences that are awesome. And then operational efficiency is really huge, right? All of those other things come into play and help create an operation that's streamlined, that's tech enabled, that's scalable, that's fun to be a part of, that gives you like your mission control view of the whole firm. And then you can think about growth, right? Doing these things out of order is just going to lead to chaos and wasted spend. So, you know, we also hear from clients when they hire us, oh, you know, I turned on this marketing funnel. I'm paying like $5,000 a month for marketing, and you know, it's just not panning out, or I don't know what to do with the work. It's probably because these things are out of balance, right? So we help to harmonize across these things. And so our legal design process is really interesting, and that's what I want to walk you guys through here and show you where Scribe fits into it. And this is like a real client quote, by the way. Our process ends up feeling like therapy because we want our clients to really just like unload. And when I say clients, it's not just a managing partner who just wants to take the first vacation in like 10 years, but it's their staff, including their intern. We want to hear from everybody. And so it ends up feeling like they kind of look left and right and they're like, you want to hear from me? Really? Like, yeah, I want to hear from you, right? So like tell us what's up. And so the first thing we do is we make operations visible. This is really important. Like we have to understand how the work actually happens, not how it's like idealized to happen in some idealistic future, right? But like reality. And then we design the firm's operations. These two steps are our discovery and design phase that I'm going to unpack for you guys. But it's really fun. Like we actually ask our clients to dream a little bit here. Like, what do you want to happen? And what we end up finding is a lot of clients are stuck thinking about the limitations of the tools they've bought or the staff they've hired or the things that they've experienced. And we're like, nope, throw all of that away. What do you want? Right. And so it's really a cathartic experience for our clients. But once we can do that, then we can actually go build stuff. Like we'll automate what makes sense. And of course, we'll redesign what's not automatable because some things are just not, right? We don't just build automations, we redesign the whole firm. And at the end of that, then we train the team and then we deploy. And so we actually have a ton of engagement across this process with the whole firm staff, not just like the managing partner, like one or two people. We want to hear from everyone and we want them to see themselves in this process. And so what's interesting, Scribe actually has a role in all four of these phases of our work. We don't just use it to create SOPs. And I think that's what's really exciting. When I was asked to be on this webinar, I thought to myself, of course I want to do this because Scribe has completely transformed the way we do our work. And it's transformed the customer experience that we deliver to law firms as they hire us to do the work. So thank you, Nico, for providing such an awesome product. We really do enjoy it. And so how we do it in this first step is making the invisible visible. Before we fix anything, we actually need to see how the firm runs. And this is the part that I think really stops a lot of our clients in their steps. They look at us and they say, I just hired you. I want you to just go automate the thing that I told you was the pain point. But what I think our clients initially don't understand that then they do is if we do that one thing, we're putting a band-aid on one thing, but there's a ripple effect across your operations, right? We don't want to overinvest in fixing this one thing unless it's a huge fire, then we'll do it first until we can actually see how your firm runs. From the moment a lead reaches out to you and you send them an intake form to the moment you close the case and ask them for a Google review. We need to see all of it. Once we can see it, then we can start to fix it. And so we love leaning into the law firm architects like branding. Think of it like an architect, right? Drawing the foundation of a home. You need that floor plan before you start building. I'm sure you could just start building, but you'd have a pretty shaky house. And so we really evangelize, like, let's study it, let's be academic a little bit, let's have some fun doing it, and then let's go build. And so what's really interesting here that I didn't expect when I started this business is our process unveils how people, process, and tech work together, but more importantly, how they don't. So we're partnered with a lot of like legal tech companies, pretty much all of them, because we end up calling them as part of this process and saying, hey, can your tool do this thing? And most of the time they say, yeah. Oh my God, we do that thing. Is your client not using that thing? Because we would love for them to use that thing, And so we end up connecting these dots, which is really exciting. But sometimes the conversation goes another way, and the tools, the vendors, the processes, and things supporting the firm can't meet that future state. And so we have some hard conversations on behalf of our clients because that's our job. This is a really important kind of critical aspect of what we do. Some of the discovery methods that we use to figure out how the firm runs is really, really important. Collaborative workshops are huge. Having been a former head of customer experience, I can tell you, getting everyone into a room to have like a collaborative dreaming session where we just put a bunch of stickies in a virtual Miro board and like all dream a little bit is huge. And there's no perspective that is undervalued in these conversations. I always like to say, if you have an intern, bring them. If you have a child that comes in and helps print stuff when you're getting ready to mail a package or a demand letter. I want to hear from them. Like, what's that process like? Let's bring everybody in, let's have fun with it. And so we get really fresh ideas from doing this. We also do staff interviews, and nobody at my company dresses in this kind of formal suit. We keep it pretty low key. Uh, but we learn directly from the staff. People strategies are really important in what we do, and so we want to understand career progression. What are your goals, right? Like, what do you do here? But also, more importantly, how do you feel about it, and what do you want to do next? Because all of our clients want what's best for their staff, obviously for their firm, but they're human, right? And they want their staff to have a good time. And so through staff interviews, we learn about the exceptions, the invisible rules, but also what people want so we can find the common denominator that equals better for the firm. We also experience map everything. So journey maps, like all sorts of maps, like we do all of these things because mapping out the firm's flows is how we can actually document understanding. I'm also an engineer, as I mentioned at the beginning of this. So like I bring into this process just so much engineering discipline that you could pretty much like launch a space shuttle at the end of your law firm redesign. Like it's pretty detailed stuff, but it has to be because the work is detailed. And so to really bring it home to Scribe, we also use Scribe self-recordings a ton here. And I'll show you on the next slide exactly where, but we ask law firms to turn on Scribe and record specific processes for us because sometimes words and stickies just aren't enough. We might hear about something that's like very complex, has multiple steps, tons of systems. We want to see it, like just show us. And sometimes you just can't jump on a call with all of the clients we have and watch them do it. Of course, we do that when we have to, but Scribe saves us so much time in this aspect that it's really great. And so it is more than just SOPs, right? Scribe self-recordings allow us to really dive into complex processes asynchronously. So it expands my team's reach. And so we find as part of our process, those really, really complex, hairy, tough to describe, multiple system touch point processes. We buy a license for our clients and we train them on how to use Scribe Desktop, which literally takes like seconds. If folks on this call, I'm sure, have used it. Our clients will record their screen while they're doing that thing that we needed them to do. And then we get the output. Like we get to see it as a scribe in our workspace, which finally we understand, oh my gosh, they're clicking on this thing to do that thing, which was the wrong way to do the thing in the tool, right? Or maybe they're jumping across 6 different products. Scribe does a really great job at showing us that. And so in this regulatory environment, Smart Blur helps us a ton because we're able to really protect client data, which is one of the most sensitive assets we get access to. The desktop app is super easy to use and install across Windows and Mac, and our clients are using any combination or any updated or out of update sync version of all of those things. So Scribe does a really good job of playing nice with those. But getting instant access once these scribes are recorded is a huge unlock for us. Well, when we started this process, we didn't have this methodology yet. And so once we found Scribe to build SOPs, which I'll show you in a minute, we realized, wait a second, this is like a really good use case for these like 1 or 2 things in every client process where we really want to dive in deeper. And so, Nico, I want to give you the floor here so you can show us a little bit of these features, if you don't mind.
Of course, of course. Thank you very much for teeing that up. That was fantastic. I love too how you can always say, if somebody ever comes to you and is like, hey, it's not as hard as rocket science, right? You can be like, oh, well, it kind of is. I've done both.
Actually,
And actually, I'm bringing a little bit of both. The crossover is there. Awesome. Yeah, I'd be happy to share my screen just really quickly because as you had mentioned, the desktop application is fantastic for a lot of folks. A lot of the people on this call have likely only ever used our browser extension before too, which is great. But like you said, Luis, if you're actually looking to try to get an understanding of how work happens across applications, across different, if you're going outside of the browser, which many firms do, accounting firms oftentimes will have their own, self-hosted software that they're using internally, and they need to train new people on that, but they can't find a way to do so. That's where the desktop application comes into play. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly, just my entire large desktop too. So I apologize if it looks a little funky on some of your displays here. However, so this is my main desktop. And say, for example, I was wanting to try to open up and train somebody on how to actually use the Canva desktop application. So, of course, there's a lot of different desktop applications we could use. This one, just the one that I use the most in my field. So you open up the Scribe desktop recorder here. It'll pop up with a little recording where you can select what team you want it to actually go to. When you hit start capture, it'll bring up a little window selector where you can actually choose, all right, where do I want to record this scribe? If you are going across multiple different screens and you have many different applications open up, you will want to pick the all screens option, so that way it's tracking every single one of your clicks just as it would if you were within the browser. But for this app, for this one, we're just going to go ahead and choose screen 2 here so I can show you all what this actually looks like. One of the coolest parts about the new desktop updates is that they have brought feature parity over from our Chrome extension over to desktop too. So you'll actually be able to see a little live preview of what that looks like. So that's a relatively newer feature for folks too. But as Luis was saying, it's fantastic to actually figure out how work is actually getting done within your organization, and not that idealized version of, oh, they should be doing it this way, but how are they actually doing it? What are the little shortcuts they might be taking here too? On the side here, what you're going to have is you're going to have a few different options. You can, of course, always pause the capture. You can use voice transcription, which is a fantastic little pro tip upgrade too. I'm not sure if most of the folks here have actually used voice transcription before. It's essentially just a speech to text transcriber. So if you're talking while you're actually making the scribe, it will input all of the speech that you had as the new step text. So it cuts down immensely on the actual time it takes to edit that scribe too, which is fantastic. But we're going to go ahead and just click around here. So say, for example, I wanted to show them how to go to home and then create a new social media post, find the docs down here, create a pageless document here. Say, for example, too, I was like, oh, wait, there's actually a part of this workflow that I need to go through and go to the website for. What you can do is you can click on wherever you need to go to on the actual website itself. Click print here for whatever reason you need to do it. And as you can see, the desktop recorder is capturing the process even as it's moving from an actual application over to a browser, back to the application too. So you can use this especially if you're onboarding new people and you're like, hey, this is how you navigate our internal hard drive, and this is where you need to put the files, and this is what you need to do here too. So you can really clearly explain all of that very quickly with that desktop recorder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit complete capture. It'll give me a little finalizing your scribe just as it does in the browser extension. And you can see here the beautiful scribe document here. Now you might notice too that on click here will be the most common step text. That's because the browser extension is actually reading out like the HTML in all of the actual applications that you're going to in your browser. So it'll be a little bit more precise. That's where voice transcription comes in really, really handy here, especially if you're using the desktop app. So you can then replace that. So say, for example, I put, make sure you click the home button on the left side of the screen. That would then replace this text right here too. So it reduces the amount of time that you have to go through and edit that. But as Louise was saying, one of the biggest benefits of actually using Scribe and upgrading to a pro or enterprise tier is you get access to what we call the Smart Blur, or on the enterprise tier, Smart Privacy screen. And on Smart Privacy screen for the enterprise folks, that will allow people, the admins, to set a default level of auto redaction of any sensitive information. So say, for example, you are working in a healthcare system and all of the patient IDs are exactly 7 digits long, ending with U and starting with W. You can set a very specific string of text to always be redacted, so you never have to worry about any of your employees actually collecting any of this information, any of them sharing this externally too. So all of these safeguards in place help to, protect sensitive data and information here. So what that actually looks like is when you hit start capture in the browser extension, you will always have this little smart blur option that's popping up here. So when you click this, immediately you'll see it blurs out everything. And so I've got it set up just to have the default options be email addresses, numbers, and common names too, as well as images. So this is also great to just protect that information. You'll notice if you uncheck one of them, of course, it'll go through and it'll say, oh, just kidding, we can show that image. Oh, we can share email address and we can share numbers and all of that good stuff too. What is great is if you are actually going through and you're recording this. So say, for example, I was going and recording this about how to add a description, but I didn't want any of the information in here. I would come here, I would click add description, write yourself. And as you can see, once these images pop up, you'll see the actual blur is in the image that's being captured on Scribe too. So for everybody on the call too, none of this information is ever being sent to our servers. All we are getting here on Scribe is this default image that has everything already blurred out too. So same goes for private or manual redaction too. If you're ever going through and editing any images manually and you're redacting any information, that image then replaces the original image on our servers, and we never have access to any of the information that you have blurred out there too. So that's a really important safeguard that we have to help us maintain compliance with HIPAA and a lot of other regulatory standards there too to help protect your data there. So those are the two main things that I wanted to just pop in and showcase too. Luis, I'm extremely happy to throw it back over to you to talk more about how you're actually using it and all the other good stuff too. But if anybody has any questions about any of that, please let me know.
Sure. And you do have a question in the chat here.
Oh,
Sarah
yes.
Timms asked, for the voice transcription, is it real time or done after the fact?
Yes, that's a great question, Sarah. So I usually compare it to riding a bike a little bit. There's a specific little cadence that you have to get into doing so when you're using voice transcription. It's essentially you turn it on, you say the actual text that you want to be replacing that step text there, and then you make the click. So for example, if I was doing that again and I was saying, "Oh, make sure you click the left-hand side, the home button icon." I would say that, then I would click that, and then it would immediately populate the text into that step itself too. So it's definitely live. And there's actually no voice recording taking as well too, so you don't have to worry about people hearing your voice. I know that's a big anytime I mention voice transcription, they're like, "Whoa, whoa, I don't want
Oh,
to be
yeah.
heard. I don't want to be perceived." That's why I like Scribe is so I can just record it and do it as normal. But no, never fear, it just actually takes the voice to text, so you only ever get that included. Great question.
Yeah, thanks, Nico. Yeah, and Sarah Timms, that is a great question. And in our aspect, in our use case, I should say, it's super helpful because we ask people to just talk while they're recording that scribe for us, and so we get a ton of insight from that. And usually, we get the kind of insights that you wouldn't get if you were just watching someone do it or asking them live on a call, because they're thinking to themselves without that social pressure, which has a huge impact on our work. But from all of this discovery, we actually get clarity. No matter how complex the firm, no matter how many people are in it, our process is bulletproof. And so we finally figure out how people, process, and tech all come together. We get to see how the work actually happens, not how it's supposed to, right? Where the judgment calls come in, because we're seeing it on the SOPs, we're seeing it on the scribes, and we're seeing it in our workshops. Usually we'll ask questions that are open-ended, and so we get like it depends. We want to pull on that, right? We figure out what steps are critical, where there's complexity, and how systems play or don't play together. But once everything is visible and it's laid out, now we can design it. And so this is why we don't just jump into automating stuff or building tech or revising those 80-page SOPs to mirror the current way of working, because we're just going to reimagine it together anyway. And so from all of that, right, and discovery being our input, now we understand how the firm actually runs. Now we lead the team to intentionally design their practice. And so this includes, what are your practice areas? Like, what are the lines of business? And if you're in an area or a domain that's not law, you'll still see yourself in this model, because I actually just stole this from engineering. So if you take anything like plumbing, this model works. It's bulletproof, right? Like, what are the lines of business that you do? And within that, what are the different types of cases or things that you're working on? Within those things, what are the stages? Like you can see in this image, we have lead, intake, onboarding, and it continues. We evangelize like thinking about structured work in this way, because this makes it easier to design. It's not just like, oh God, it depends on what the client sends back. No, you're driving, right? You're providing the service, so let's design it. And then also within stages, what are the tasks? Like, how do we actually progress work? Because we don't just like automagically do it, which is a word I've made up. And then also case communications, like how are we communicating to the team? How are handoffs happening? How are clients staying abreast of what's up with their case? And dashboards and reporting, like what does the firm need to see to feel good, right? If the managing partner is on vacation on a beach, or maybe not on vacation, but it's just Tuesday now after they work with us and they can be on a beach on a cell phone running their firm, what do they want to see? What are the three metrics that matter? And so we design all of that together. And so this becomes the firm's new operating design. We sit down and have like a really detailed design review with them, where we walk through this kind of image that I have on the screen and unpack with them how it's all going to happen, where automation fits in, where the exceptions are. And every communication, every task, everything, it's designed, it's in here. And so we talk through it with them and they start to see what the future could actually look like. It's a super exciting milestone in our process. But once our clients approve this design, we go implement everything. Now we actually get access to tech and like start implementing and breaking things and buying new tools and implementing them and all of that. Um, but the most exciting part out of all of this for me, from like an enterprise kind of design perspective, is our SOP structure. So when Nico reached out to me, I was like, dude, we got to hang out. I'm a huge believer that 80-page SOPs are just dead. Like no one's going to use them. You don't use them. I don't use them. No one cares about them. If you're actually going to design Scribe SOPs and a Scribe library for your team, do it like this. It's not just for law, but it's something that we've created and our clients love it. We use this experience map layout that actually makes it useful to come back to. So you'll notice at the top, we have case stages. So think about the work you do, there's stages. And then within each stage, there's several tasks that you do, right? So we name our SOPs to match real world action, which is a super important step. Because if we named it something generic that didn't make sense and wasn't connected to the work in plain language, then not everybody would understand it, right? But the litmus test here for us is if my grandmother came to work for your law firm, could she jump in, who's not tech proficient? Yeah, maybe your grandmother is, mine is not, right? Could she jump in and be efficient day one? That's the measure of success for us. And so we also link to the Scribe SOPs that are dynamic, right? The screenshots move. We have like you can see exactly where people click. We have the headers. We have all of the right things to make it make sense. And we also make sure to include SOPs that are not technology steps, like how to communicate a decision to a client. It's super important in law because not everything is an approval, especially if you're in immigration, like this one client. There's a lot of sensitivity that goes into these conversations. So capturing the human element, especially using Scribe, makes it really easy for clients to understand and to start to let go, right? Like typically this might be something the managing partner would only do, but maybe they hired a new associate attorney and now they can do this too, right? So it's really, really important that we use this visual formats and see it be adopted. Some things we absolutely love about Scribe-based SOPs, and here's just some screenshots of some of our SOPs that I could share. One, screenshots. I literally can't say enough. Like what Nico just showed in that one demo is mind-blowing. And before Scribe, we all know how we used to do this, right? Screenshot, a little bit of text in a Word document. It was just a nightmare. But this process works so well. It works across all levels of tech proficiency too. So whether it's a Gen Z who's like on TikTok all day, or a very senior partner who's just adopting technology for the first time and is like, look, I'm a pen and paper kind of guy. They love this and it works really well. We also use things like tips and alerts in our SOPs to highlight exceptions and the kind of off nominal processing. So for example, in this SOP, if a lead is not qualified, what do we do? Right? Like usually we want everyone to be qualified. In a traditional environment, this would have been another SOP, but all we needed was a little baby text box just to let them know, hey, here's what you do. And it's very easy to add those in. Within SOPs, we get to also capture broader exception flows. So for example, this header section here is, what if a lead fails to book? Again, this would have taken 2 more clicks to find, and now it's just part of the original like lead process SOP. Super easy. And finally, having a really clear explanation of what happens when you trigger an automation. This is massive. I see so many engineering firms out there doing like automations and I'll automate your practice. I love those because I'm like, sure, buddy. But they basically leave you with a system that you're afraid to touch because it's so delicate. You're like, oh man, if I press this button, I think it does these things. We actually want to make people feel confident that when they click the button, they know exactly what's going to happen. And so whenever we trigger an automation in an SOP, we include this green tip that says, hey, here's what you're about to trigger, heads up, right? And we include who it goes to and what actions, and it's super clear. We have great adoption from all of these solutions. But yeah, just to kind of start wrapping up, like the impact of the work we do, clear roles and accountability, because we include the staff. They're part of the design process. It's different if this process happened to you, but when it happens with you, you're not going to reject it as much, right? You're going to adopt the change and be a part of it and feel like you were included, which is huge. really tough for certain attorneys to let go and let their team be a part of it. We have some clients who say, I don't want you to hear from my team because I know what we need. And we push back aggressively on that because that's the wrong answer. We can drive them towards your vision, absolutely, but they have to be part of it because they're the ones delivering the next bullet, a smooth client experience, right? We build documented SOPs for literally everything because it just saves time. We implement tech that helps the staff and helps the clients. We don't implement tech just to implement tech because we don't need more tech. Like we're already going from like one screen to the other screen all day, right? So we just need things that help us. Um, More importantly, because our whole brand is around reducing burnout, fewer late nights. Like we want to make sure people make it home to dinner, like that is so important. We want to make sure that people are still practicing law. I forget the statistics, but some crazy percentage of lawyers are moving away from the legal practice because it is so overwhelming and challenging and demanding. But we build firms that run like a well-built machine, not like a fire drill. But most important to me as a business owner as well is staff onboarding. Like if I can't onboard people easily, then I'm going to always struggle to scale my business, right? And last but not least, we want to see firm owners at Disney on the beach, taking a vacation, like enjoying their time. Like go step away. Like this thing can run without you. Trust us, right? Trust your team. They've got it. And so we evangelize the model of design first, build smart. Like stop tinkering. Let's do it once and let's do the thing. And so, yeah, just to wrap up, we design law firms that don't run on burnout, right? We don't have to live in this chaotic presence. And we do all of this with the power of Scribe. And so I just want to say, Nico, thank you so much for hosting me and having me here, man. We love the product. We're always excited for new features. And yes, we'll beta test like every single thing.
Perfect. I was just about to ask, so thank you very much. I'll be coming to you for sure. I actually have there's a new feature that one of our product leads is actually looking for new beta testers for, so I will definitely be reaching out for sure. Well, thank you very much. Before we actually finally wrap up, I've got a few rapid fire fun little questions that I would love to ask you if you are ready for them. First question for you: if you could describe your organization's workflows using just 3 words, what would those 3 words be for you?
Ooh, fun, dynamic, and scalable.
Oh, I love that last piece. Scalable is huge. Scalable is fantastic. So I'm glad that that made that into there. Second question for you. If inefficiency were a tax, what percent would your org be paying right now?
Oh, gosh, that is a tough one. Like my org specifically, like law firm architects org. Oh gosh, we'd be probably paying. So I'm always looking to improve, and my bar is so high on that. I'd say
Sure.
probably 20% at least. Yeah,
That's
there's always room
fantastic.
for improvement. Yeah,
I think there always is. No matter there definitely still is, even here with my own workflows and the things that I'm doing too. So I always appreciate that. Always looking to see who's being honest here. Good to
yeah.
know we can trust the law firm
Well, I'll give
architects.
you a tip, Nico. Build a
Yeah.
scribe.
Thank you. I will definitely look into this tool. I love that. And one kind of, I guess, controversial question in today's day and age for AI. What is one thing that AI makes harder today?
Oh, yeah, that's super easy to answer. It's the human touch. We can automate, we can AI, we can do anything. Like we can go from a meeting that an attorney's having with a client directly, they hang up that call and immediately they're onboarding the client. They've received a fee agreement and an engagement letter and an invoice. Like, oh, that's easy. But using AI to replace the human touch is impossible. So we use it in our method, in our process, we have certain touch points where we ask attorneys and their team specifically, where do you want to preserve the human element? Because that can't be replaced, right? And where is it not important? What are those moments that matter? The AI can't do that.
I love that so much. Well, thank you very much too. Seriously, thank you very much for your time. This presentation was even better than I would have ever expected. This was absolutely
Thank you.
fantastic. So seriously, thank you very much for putting this all together. I can't even imagine how helpful this is to a lot of our viewers here today and to viewers who are watching this in the future on YouTube or wherever else this will be hosted to. I'm very excited just to be able to share all of your expertise and everything with everybody too. So thank you seriously so much. This was
Of
incredibly
course.
helpful just for me to understand how you're actually using Scribe. I'm sure for all the people watching too. So if there's anything else that you would like to plug, any upcoming events or anything else too, any where people can actually find you, I'd love to give you the floor for one last time before we go.
Sure, absolutely. I think if anybody wants to geek out on anything that I touched on here or how this can apply to your industry if you're not in law, please email me. It's luis.barres at lawfirmarchitects.com. But for sure, if there's any attorneys out there on the call or any legal teams that are curious about how this could add value or be relevant for your team, reach out to us. We're at lawfirmarchitects.com, and we are doing cutting edge stuff.
Fantastic with cutting edge tools like Scribe. I love that.
Of
That's
course,
it. You know what?
absolutely.
I in my head I keep going back to your message of, oh, we want to make it to where if my grandma were to come into work, she would be able to
So
know where to
true.
go. And I think that is
Yeah,
fantastic. It's so funny. One of our sessions that we did before this too, one of our other Scribe partners, Erica Statley, she runs a firm called the 128 Collective. She was like, my whole goal is if anybody off the street were to come in and look at your organization, they would be able to know what to do and where to go as long as you have, all of your scribes organized in the way that they should be too.
that's
So,
right. That's
so
right.
yeah, so well, thank you very much. I will go ahead too. I will make sure that everybody gets the recording. I will, of course, send a follow-up email to just again thank you everybody for taking the time out of your day today to come and hang out with us today to geek out about all things law firms and Scribe. So thank you very much. We'll be in touch here very soon, but hopefully we'll see you at a future session. All right. Well,
Thanks,
thank you
everyone.
all very
Thanks,
much.
Nico.
Take care. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day today. Take care. Stay warm out there too. I know it's even cold down here in Florida, so hopefully everybody's doing okay. Take care.